Good afternoon, everyone. This is Tammy Eisenreich, and I'm a parent partner for the Lucas County Board of DD. And today I have one of my fellow autism moms with me, Colleen Errington, that I met probably almost 15 years ago. It's crazy to think our boys are going to be, well, yours is 18, right?
19.
No way. Oh my goodness.
Yep.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story, your journey a little bit. It was great to have moms like you around me when we were first diagnosed, and even in the last 15 years on my journey, hearing different things that you've researched and you've done. That was different than what I did, but it was to know that those options were out there. So that's what I hope to share with this video to families, is that there are many different ways, different programs out there, and different ways to recruit volunteers or find childcare, or just thinking outside of the box a little bit. So would you like to start and share a little bit about Gavin?
Sure. First, thanks so much for having me on. It's great to connect with you again and to talk a little bit about our program. It's unbelievable because we're right now in the middle of orientation for college and getting him ready for University of Toledo. And so to think back so many years to the start of our diagnosis time and that whole journey, I did not expect to get tearful, but just thinking of that and feeling that emotion is pretty insane to think about, and to see his progress. So thank you again for having me on. So Gavin was diagnosed around age 3.5. So he was diagnosed a little bit late because I was first-time mom. And even though being a social worker, and that added to the extra hardness on myself with not seeing some of the signs early-ish on. But once we started to see, he's really great at this and he's really bright with this, but he doesn't talk with us or not answer our questions or ask for things really. He's so content by himself. That's wonderful as a new mom. You're like, oh, great. But it started to mean something more as we put all the pieces together and kind of looked at, he's really rigid in this way and he's really particular about certain things. But yeah, he's reading and really smart in some ways. And so we pieced all of that together and started to think, oh my gosh, I think there's something actually going on developmentally. And we started the process of having those evaluations done and figuring out what therapies were out there and what we needed to do to help him to be his best. So that was kind of early on in our process. And I don't know how much you want me to go into what different therapies we did or where, or places change so much now. So it doesn't even maybe matter.
I know that's hard. Well, today's topic mainly was on, my thought was the volunteer aspect and the child care aspect. Like, how do we find those people that we feel comfortable when leaving our child with?
Right. Okay.
Especially, but with you, how you recruited people to help with you with the Sunrise program was the
Sure.
uniqueness of your story to me. But
Yeah.
whatever you want to share, I know families, we love to
I've
connect
always
with.
So people can reach out to me. I'll make sure you have my email. People can reach out to me anytime. Happy to share. And now I work in a different way, sort of professionally, about helping to screen children really early on for developmental concerns. And so I'm always talking with them about different resources and where to get help and support. So we started some sort of more traditional therapies and taking him to occupational therapy and speech and figuring out a school program. And somehow I went to a conference actually and came across what was called the Sunrise program. And it's SON-RISE. So just so you spell it right, if you're going to look it up, if you Google it, you will find their website, but it is www.autismtreatmentcenter, so altogether.org. Okay, so that's their main website. But I came across this man speaking at a conference, and I walked up to his table before he was speaking. And I just was struck by this guy. He was very engaging and very interesting. And then when he spoke, he shared about himself as a child on the spectrum, as a very young child, and his parents developing this. At the time, it's what they did with him. It's just what they did. It wasn't a program then. It wasn't a therapy. It wasn't anything. It was just how they decided to interact with and love and be with their child as he was, very much child focused, very play based, very one-on-one, and what they could do with him in their own home. And so they started this program and then shared it with thousands and thousands of people across the country and across the world. And it came to be the Sunrise program. So the person speaking was Ron Kaufman, the original Sunrise child. And to talk to him beforehand and then see him on stage and tell his story just was really incredible. And it really hit me emotionally and personally about, I want to know what I can do with my son. I don't want to take him only to other therapies and schools and places for others to work with him. We did that as well. You know, I fully love and adore all of the people that we've had in our journey over the years, and still through his high school and, you know, going into college now. So it's not to say I don't want anybody else to work with him. But I wanted to know because I knew I had control over what I did. And I knew I wanted to find a way to love interacting with my child and love being with him. And it was challenging at times, for sure, to know he does not play like other kids and he does not interact with me like other kids. And how can I feel impactful with doing that? So the Sunrise program really taught us that. And it's a very much, like I said, very play-based, very child-centered. It's not, oh, I want my child to learn that skill, so I'm just going to focus on teaching that skill over and over and over. It is, I want my child to interact with us and relate with us, and those skills will come through that. So it really brings it back to, how do I get my child to look at me and have eye contact with me? How do I help my child to have an interactive attention span so we can play a game together, so we can learn colors, words, saying sentences, all the different levels of steps in communication and learning that we want our kids to do. And it can be used with all levels of kids. So anywhere on the spectrum, you can use this program and have an impact with your child. So then it was an in-person program, and we went to Massachusetts to learn the program and then learn how to recruit volunteers and implement the program at home. Now it's all done virtually. Okay, so that's why people would really want that website. There's a ton of tools that are on there to use even before you decide you're going to do a full Sunrise program. Just helpful information or ways to think about autism or to think about our special kiddos. But when we decided to run most of the time, some of the time, you know, pretty intensive Sunrise program and really implement it at home, we knew my husband and I couldn't do it just ourselves. So that's where the idea about volunteers or active play participants come in. And so the program and the training that we went through really teaches you about recruiting others and how to do that, and how to lead them as a team. It was a big deal. Like, thinking back, I'm just like, what? How did I do that? Like, seriously, how did I do all that? I learned that it didn't have to be people that were already trained about autism or people that were going to be working with individuals with autism. That could be great. And I really liked the idea. We have a university near us. So University of Toledo is a resource that I was like, I'm going to tap into that somehow. I'm going to try to figure out, are there students that would love a volunteer community service type activity, but also to learn and have a huge impact in a young kiddo's life? So I started to think about who might be interested. Maybe speech therapy students, maybe occupational therapy, education, special education, any of those areas that I was open to. And then they talked with us about like drama students and everything. They're really outgoing and they're really, you know, engaging, and Sunrise, it doesn't have to be always like that, but it's very much like very expressive, very enthusiastic. And so we really looked for all students. And I had a connection with the University of Toledo parish, was where we were going to church at the time. And I knew they had a Catholic Student Association. So we personally reached out to the association and to they were having a community fair, something like a service fair that they invited me to attend. So I came to the fair, set up a table, put up cute pictures of Gavin because he was super intriguing. And, like people were like, well, what's this all about? What's this little kid up to? So created flyers and shared, materials about the program and just said, we're interested in having you learn about our child and help us with our child. We will train you. You don't have to be trained. You don't have to be. And we had such an outpouring of response from students. It was incredible. And the fact that he's about to be a University of Toledo student is just, he's come full circle to this. So, but I would meet individually. So a lot of people are like, oh, you just invited any students or any people into your home? No, I mean, it was an open invitation. People could show interest. We had, I think, a questionnaire of why would you be interested? What would be challenging about this for you? What's your, background? What are you studying? Questions. And then I would meet individually with them and talk through their responses and really gauge their level of interest and their level of commitment, really, because it was a commitment. And, to see if they would be a trustworthy person to come into our home, if they would be willing to commit to it. And the thing with the program is we had cameras in the room to record, and we had a window cut into the door. It's still in the door. It's covered over with a plaster. It's literally still in the door. But a two-way mirror or a one-way mirror, so you could see in, but you couldn't see out. So people had to be comfortable with being watched, with being recorded, with me giving them feedback. So the safety factor, I think, was very much going to weed out anybody that had any kind of ill intention. They knew they were going to be watched by me for 2 hours straight with my child at first, and training though. They had to be open to training. So we provided tons of feedback, tons of suggestions. Could be an open discussion about how the experience was going for them. So there was a lot of factors in place for safety, for their comfort and learning and training. So that's, I've said a ton of things. So any questions or input or anything at this point, Tammy?
Is there anything you would have changed? Like now that you reflect back on it, did you think, oh my gosh, why did we do it this way? Or if we would have done it now with social media and everything so much more, would there have been other avenues that maybe you see now? Gosh, that would have helped us tremendously if we would have done that.
Yeah, I mean, I think I definitely would have I became a huge user of social media and using Facebook. And so connecting with a lot of people that way, I probably would have reached out a lot more that way. I think the in-person piece was really helpful though, so that I could really get a feel for people, because if they were going to come into my home and be with my child for long periods of time, I wanted to know I felt comfortable with them. So I think, yes, I would have used social media. I probably also would have still done those in-person, meetings with them and everything as well. I'm trying to think of anything else that now, I mean, we did do some fundraising a little bit. I mean, some people feel really uncomfortable with fundraising and asking people for money. And it was a balancing act with that. My husband wasn't really comfortable. I wasn't, but I also was even more passionate about being able to do this program and to get the training that we needed. So I got over my discomfort about it and started to be willing to ask people for donations, for money, because the training, we needed to pay to go there at the time. It wasn't virtual then. So, so we did get, worked on some fundraising too, just through donations from people and things like that.
But to clarify, your students were volunteering their time. They were not paid, correct?
They were not paid at all. Looking back, I'm just like, oh gosh, now I should send them all money. More money. I'm older. I work more now. Like I have some money now that I could send to them. And I've thanked them profusely and everything. And I think it really was the people that we had. It was such a meaningful thing for them. They really did love doing it. And they came to meetings with my husband and I too, outside of the volunteer time. They also came to meetings with us to have team meetings and work on things together and everything. So it was a big commitment for them. And they were so dedicated to us.
And we expect that from our family, like grandmas and aunts and uncles, and maybe even your neighbor. But to have a student, like someone that didn't know Gavin before this started, and to have that connection with you as a family is it says a lot about you guys as well, to see your passion and your love that you had for your son. I mean, it's contagious, I think, you know?
Yeah. And something that happened as I'm thinking back, we went to that initial, like we made the flyers. I think I sent an email. I sent emails to the what do they call it? To the officers of the Catholic Student Association. So I reached out personally to like certain people and said, this is what we're doing. Are you or anybody that you know interested in this? And of course, I went to a Christian, organization. So where people would already maybe be interested in doing community service. And then knowing that UTCSA had this community service fair, these were people coming there that wanted to do service in all types of things. I mean, there were people there from everything, all different types of organizations and programs and all that kind of thing. We were probably the only one like, hey, come in and help our personal family. But and that might have drawn certain people to us and some people away, and that's okay, but I think it was really part of reaching out and not being hesitant to ask, at least to say, this is what we're looking for. Does it fit you? If not, no problem. But if it does, talk with me more. And we found those people. And then those students passed on their experience to either their classmates or to other people involved in the CSA organization, Catholic Student Association at school. And more volunteers came from the others that we had. So we had sort of like several, maybe generations or years of students that were involved. And if they couldn't, some did it for a semester, some did it for a full school year, maybe one was probably about an 18-month period of time. Some of them were longer, and but they would like pass it on to new people that they were interested in. And then I believe I came and spoke to one of the students was having some assignment that they had to do where they had to bring a speaker in, or they had to, so I came and talked to more people at UT about it, or it was part of their class or something to have someone come. And I was like, sure, I'll come. Maybe we'll get, and we did get a next volunteer from that. So I think for some parents, being able to get comfortable with asking and comfortable with sharing your story. I think I became maybe something too comfortable, like, shut up, Colleen, but really comfortable with sharing our experience and finding the unique, awesome, meaningful things about my son and about how being involved with him could touch other people's lives so much. And I really heard back from all the students how much it did. And then we would get like blurbs from them as I'm talking through. I'm thinking of other things. We would get little, what do you call it? They have on like, any kind of website, like
A posting or I'm trying to think, like a shout out to you, meaning, or
how it impacted their life. What was their experience from it? I don't, there's a name for this.
testimonial, or I'm trying.
Testimonial. Yeah. Like a testimonial, what their experience was like. And so they would share that, and then other students could relate to them because they're another college student talking about that. And we had a few others that were not college students. Huge shout out to Mary Henning. She was a family friend. I knew her daughters. She was retired. So she said, I have some time. I could help your son. I don't know what I'm doing. And she helped out, so she was an older retired person who helped us. And then, mostly after that, it was mostly college students because that's just what fit and worked well for us. Any other questions about any of that?
Thank you so much, Colleen. I learned more about it just listening to you. I mean, I was on the receiving end, like I saw your emails go out, I'd see your Facebook posts, and it looked like things were going great. So I'm like, whatever she's doing is working. So talking about UT, well, when you mentioned the volunteer fairs, just so the parents that are on here, Owens, UT, and Bowling Green all have volunteer fairs for their college students, where they encourage community businesses and organizations to come in and recruit there. So I'm guessing it's something very much, similar to that. So a lot of times as a parent, you could reach out to them and say, hey, would I be able to have a table there and have a flyer and promoting what I'm doing? Like you said, you'd have to be comfortable asking. If you don't ask, you never know. I think as parents, we're so eager, or easy to accept a no or expect a no. And I don't think that's the case. I think more and more, especially here in Northwest Ohio, I think we are so lucky. So that being said, I would love to transition from Colleen to Luke Sims from Rally Cap Sports and have him share a little bit about the Rally Cap Sports program that is available both at UT and Bowling Green. But the reason it piqued my interest is for my son, we used UT speech students. So I will share that contact information at the end of this as well. But Rally Cap, I've had several families tell me that they've used students that have been involved with the Rally Cap sports program. So we would love to make sure families know about this wonderful opportunity for their child, but also another opportunity to tap into not always, when you think of students, you always think of those 18, 19-year-olds, but I know that there's some that are a little bit older, but that would want to possibly, even as we paid our UT student, our speech student, but she was very inexpensive compared to typical childcare costs. So I would love to introduce Luke Sims.
Great. Hi, thank you. Oh, this has been informative and fun. I am Luke Sims. I'm the executive director of Rally Cap Sports. We provide recreational sports for children and young adults with special needs. And as discussed, locally, we are at two universities, Bowling Green State University and the University of Toledo. We are also at other universities in other states, but just focusing in on those two. What we do is we help build a student organization at the university, BGSU and UT, and those students, typically undergrad, but also graduate students, help put on year-round sports for local kids with special needs in the area. And so that's what we do fundamentally. But a big part of our program, as you might imagine, has just been developing a community. We do all sorts of things together. We go to movies together. We go to sporting events together. So sports is kind of at the center of what we do. But we all have developed awesome relationships, and many of the participants have become very friendly with the families and very friendly with the individuals and become very good friends. So kind of to transition to where my group or our group or kind of groups like ours might play a role in this, facilitating potentially people or students that could come help out in some way. We have, as discussed, had many individuals in our UT and BGSU chapters who have gone and done babysitting or helped out with families that have participated in our program before. That is not something that we facilitate professionally with Rally Cap Sports, but we are happy to encourage it, happy to pass along flyers. We've done that before. Many families have come to us and said, hey, we're looking for a student who might be willing to come with us to the doctor's office once a week or for a couple of weeks, or there's all these different opportunities where it would just be helpful to have a helpful hand or whatever. We're happy to pass along those opportunities for various reasons. One being, we have done a great job of recruiting lots of student volunteers. So that's one of our really big strengths. So we have access to 200 plus volunteers annually at each of our chapters. So many students that are interested in helping people with special needs. A high number of those individuals, those students, need community service hours. So that's one way that it fits in here. A lot of them use our program for community service hours, and they match up the fact that they like working with people with special needs, and they found something that they like to do. And so it works very well. So many student organizations, many graduate programs, etc., sororities, fraternities, they all require a certain number of community service hours per semester. And so this might be another great way for many of these students to tack on a few extra hours where they might need it. Beyond that, a very high percentage of our volunteers, as you might imagine, are going to study special education, intervention specialists, speech pathology, etc. And so not only are many of our students really love the population of people with special needs, not only do a lot of them need community service hours, but a very high percentage of them are pretty skilled in that area and learning in that area. And so, you're kind of talking about a bucket of people that are more mature than high school students because they're college students. They need community service hours. They're probably local because they're at that university. And many of them are learning a lot about working with people with special needs. So you're talking about a really perfect group of people to tap into that we're happy to share your flyers, your interest. And we've had a lot of families kind of connect with that. So does that help?
Definitely.
Great.
That's what I was looking for. I did put a sheet together. Let's see if I can, you think I'd have this down by now, but by sharing the screen of the your contact information, and just make sure that is okay. I just phone number, email address, is that the best one for you? And I did put Mary Ann's as well, just because sometimes when it's okay, I wanted to make sure that was okay too.
Yep, all good. Yep.
Okay, and then Michael Dillon is the executive director of the UT Speech Clinic. Same type of thing. He has as well said he would put flyers up, and I looked through trying to find my old flyer that we put together when we were recruiting volunteers, and I must have changed computers because it's not on here. But we did it very eye-catching, had pictures obviously of the kids. Not only did I have a son with autism, but I also had a daughter that was 18 months younger. And so I said, you must like glitter, glue, and tea parties too, type of thing. And then I had my phone number little tabs at the bottom that the students could tear off. I know I've seen parents now, they do QR codes. So students just have to take a snapshot of it and they instantly have all the family's contact information. So whatever means possible that you can get your information into the family's hands, I think is a good thing, or the students' hands. I shared Colleen's information. Are there any other questions? I have had several friends that have used care.com. There's a whole special needs tab section on there. It's care.com. I think it's /special needs. And you can specifically ask for those that would be, aware of certain behaviors that might occur, being comfortable with a nonverbal child that uses a communication device to communicate, those that, they're sensory seeking, whatever the child's specific needs are, you can be very specific as a parent of what you're looking for on there. I've also had families that have had success with their local fraternal organizations. I have two parents that are part of the local Moose here in Sylvania, and that is how they have found like retired teachers or individuals that would be interested in knowing this family more, much like Colleen's story, getting to know the child on a and the whole family and their story and wanting to help. So they're also a great resource for funding. One of my parents that was the recruit came from the Moose, but she's like, you need to let them, you should be, granted it was paying her, but she's like, I bet you we could get the Moose to fund childcare for your child. So it was just a matter of sharing her story at one of their monthly little, I don't know if they call them meetings, and the Moose did subsidize this family for childcare because the child was 13. And so she was having difficulty finding a location locally that would take a child over the age of 12, let alone a child with any type of special needs. So, but does anybody have any questions? And Colleen, is that okay? The Colleen Errington at Gmail?
Yeah, that's fine. And I just put in the chat my number. That number you have on there is not, I'll no longer current.
Oh, okay, let me get, it's when you have one thing open, you can't see another.
Yeah.
So the chat, okay.
That was my old home number, which doesn't exist anymore. So
The landline, huh?
don't share that one. And the other thing I was going to say, at one point I don't know, I'm guessing you've talked about it in another call, but the Department of Education for the state of Ohio, the Autism Scholarship Program, and then the John Peterson Scholarship Program, we used autism scholarship providers throughout Gavin's schooling. And at one point, there was an agency that a trained Sunrise consultant and teacher and she would do consultation and then come and do actual playroom sessions. Like she was an expert in this program, and come and interact with Gavin and all that. She like contracted with an agency that was a provider. So some of his scholarship program monies 1 year was able to be used for her consultations and work with her. So I just wanted to mention that too. If some people are using that, there's possibility. And it was an agency that was in like the Cleveland area. So it wasn't a local agency, but she was able to contract with them and be one of our providers for that year.
So you found her first through the Sunrise
Yeah.
program, and knowing that you were in Ohio, she was able to share with you that she was linked with an agency that was an autism scholarship provider. That's awesome. Because
Other
oops, I think at least on my end, you're breaking up a little bit. Okay.
Yeah, she worked with other families too that used the autism scholarship throughout the state. So yeah, and she even lived in Michigan, so it was good.
Do you happen to remember the agency name? Just right.
I was trying up in
It's
my morning. I could not come across it. So if I find it, I'll let you know.
Okay, but she's probably gone. But the thought is that might be something to look into. We have talked about the autism scholarship before in regards to like summer camp, because families can live here in Lucas County, but you find a camp. There was one down towards Cincinnati that I had a family that they were able to get a portion of their autism scholarship to fund their summer camp portion down in Cincinnati, which was a different county in Ohio, but they as well were an autism scholarship provider. So I think that's something some parents don't realize, that one, you can have multiple providers that take the autism scholarship and you can kind of divvy it up that way, or even multiple counties. So it is definitely worth mentioning. So thank you. Okay. Anybody else have any questions for Luke or Colleen? Okay, well, I do want to thank you guys. I will be, obviously this gets recorded and it'll be on the Lucas County Board of DD's website under the resource tab under finding funds. All the videos that I've done last year with a different funding organization, as well as this year with a different opportunity to get a grant or alternate funding for, are listed under this year's. And next month on July 26th, I will be speaking to Julie D. Arman and about how she did private fundraising for her son Ben's care. So thank you again for joining us today.